Welcome to this symposium on solutions to monitor plant pollinators and their interaction in the changing world. I would like to first thank Collège de France and the Jean-François and Marie-Laure de Clermont-Tonnerre Foundation, as well as the Museum of Natural History for making this possible. Also, I would like to thank all the speakers for accepting the invitation. Gabrielle Martin, who co-organized the symposium with me, as well as Solène Agnew and Vanessa Lenné, who really helped also for the organization. And Oliver Pescott also, who I think gave the original idea to try to bring together all the people working with plant monitoring in Europe and elsewhere. And all of you for being here. So I will start with a quick introduction for today's talk. The general context, obviously, is that plants and pollinators are undergoing major changes nowadays, and these changes have different facets. I'm not going to list all of them, but for plants, for example, we're witnessing an homogenization of plant communities, as well as changes in the composition of these communities. For pollinators, many facets as well, but an obvious one is a collapse in the biomass of insects, which has been demonstrated by a couple of studies. And for the interactions between plants and pollinators, for example, local extinctions of plants and their specialized pollinator, and vice versa. So many changes, but these changes are still incompletely documented and incompletely understood, meaning that we do not know all the mechanisms involved and how they impact, in particular, the interactions. And there are many options to try to improve our understanding, but one of them is to have better long-time series documenting the changes. And there are different options to study these temporal trends in either plants or pollinators. One of them is to use what are called opportunistic data, that is data that are collected outside any standardized protocol or any sampling scheme. On the plus side, these data are usually really abundant, but they're often associated with several biases, spatial biases, taxonomic biases, temporal biases, and they require statistical tools to try to correct as much as possible these biases. Note that these opportunistic data are often occurrence data, presence-absence data, although it's not a strict link between the two. Another option is to resurvey fixed plots. This is widely used for plant communities, and with such an approach, the temporal bias is ideally eliminated, but at least partly corrected. However, the spatial bias might remain depending on how the historical sites that are resurveyed were chosen. And finally, the gold standard to really document temporal changes without any bias is a structured monitoring scheme with representative sites that are chosen at random on a given territory, fixed sites that are visited on a regular basis, and ideally a monitoring of all species within the site. This type of monitoring eliminates part of the biases, and in some cases completely, but it takes more time to collect this data than, for example, opportunistic data, and it may be associated with fewer data than the other options. And all three options will be presented today. And today we are lucky enough that representatives from the main plant monitoring schemes in Europe are gathered, and they will present their approach and the main results. In order of appearance, we will hear Oliver Pescott presenting the National Plant Monitoring Scheme in the United Kingdom. Maria Begonia Garcia presenting the scheme Adopt a Plant in Spain, in Catalonia. Jérôme Frey and Tobias Ross presenting the monitoring of biodiversity in Switzerland. Gabriel Martin presenting the French monitoring scheme, Vigiflore. Bodil Ehlers and Christian Damgaard presenting Novana in Denmark. Ute Jent, I'm not sure she has arrived yet. She's here. Hello, Ute. Presenting the ESMON and maybe other schemes in Germany. And there will also be a presentation of a monitoring scheme with a broader scope, which is called Forest Replot, dedicated to forests. And it will be presented for North America by Don Waller and for Europe by Peter Dufresne. And all these schemes have produced a lot of data, a large number of publications. You have only here a small fraction of them. And except in the case maybe of the European-wide monitoring schemes, the results produced by each of these national schemes have not really been compared, let alone be aggregated. So it's one of the aims of this symposium to bring together all the people working with plant monitoring to try to see what we can do together. It's my understanding that perhaps for pollinator monitoring, things are a little bit more structured in Europe, but I may be wrong, and you let me know if this is the case. And for this, Andreas Gumbert, who works for the Director General for the Environment at the European Commission, will present the European policy background for pollinator monitoring. And Denis Michet will give more details on the European initiatives for pollinator monitoring. And finally, regarding plant and pollinator interactions, I feel that there are few schemes that are really targeting not just plants or just pollinators, but really the interactions. But there again, I may be wrong. But anyway, we'll have one example with a presentation by Nicolas Deguin, who will talk about the people citizen science monitoring scheme really targeting the interaction between plants and the pollinators to document the diversity of this interaction and how they are affected by environmental drivers. Finally, we also need to pick up the pace on data collection in a context where the naturalist expertise may be limited, particularly for the groups of pollinators, which is highly diverse. So this can be done in a variety of ways, but in particular thanks to new identification tools, which are based on machine learning approaches and automatic identification on the basis of either sounds, for example, for pollinators, or more broadly on pictures, remote sensing data, and so on. And so there are many initiatives developing in this direction today, and we will hear about one of them, PlantNet, with the presentation of Pierre Bonnet and Alexis Joly. I'm sure most of you know PlantNet, maybe even outside of France. And one important question with this tool is how and whether we can incorporate them in structured monitoring schemes. And the aim of the symposium is really to try to share knowledge on the changes in plant pollinators and their interaction across Europe and possibly outside of Europe as well, and be able to identify possible collaborations to address a number of questions which are listed here, but I won't go into details. So this is it for my introduction. Thank you again for being here, and I hope you'll enjoy this symposium. Thank you.